The diner's neon lights flickered against the cold rain outside, painting the window panes in shades of blue and red. Inside, a girl in a wheelchair sat quietly in a corner booth, her trembling hands wrapped around a cup of coffee she hadn't even sipped. Her name was Emily, 22 years old, paralyzed from the waist down after a car crash that took away her parents 2 years ago. She had learned to navigate life with silent strength, moving through the world that often stared, pitied, or ignored her. But that night, the world didn't just ignore her, it humiliated her. A group of young men, loud, careless, the kind that laughed too hard at their own cruelty, walked into the diner. They were half drunk, carrying the arrogance of boys who never had to apologize for anything. They noticed Emily sitting alone. One of them nudged another, whispering something that made the group snicker. Within moments, they approached her table. What started as mocking questions about her wheels turned into jeers. Emily tried to stay calm, hoping they'd lose interest. But the more she ignored them, the bolder they became. Then, one of them leaned down, said something vile about her disability, and when she told him to stop, he slapped her. The sound of it cut through the quiet diner like a whip. Her coffee spilled, her chair jerked back, and for a few seconds the world froze. Nobody moved. The waitress gasped but didn't intervene. The other customers stared, some in shock, some pretending not to see. Emily's eyes filled with tears, not from the pain but from the humiliation. The boys laughed as they walked out, tossing a few bills on the counter like they had paid for their entertainment. The door slammed and the rain swallowed them. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of standing up for what's right, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Ripple of Kindness. Stories like this remind us that humanity still exists, sometimes in the most unexpected hearts. Emily sat there shaking, her hand still covering her cheek. She wanted to disappear, to roll out of that diner and never come back. But her wheelchair was stuck. One of its small front wheels had jammed against the uneven tile when she recoiled. The waitress came over, hesitating, whispering a faint apology, but it sounded hollow. Emily nodded without looking up. The diner that once felt warm and safe now felt suffocating. Her dignity had been shattered in front of strangers who chose silence over compassion. She left as soon as she could, rolling out into the rain, her clothes soaked, her heart heavier than ever. She didn't know that an hour later, fate was already writing the next chapter. The same diner later that night had grown quieter. The rain still poured and the hum of the old jukebox filled the space. Then came the sound, the deep rumble of motorcycle engines, the kind that shakes the ground. Heads turned as 6 large men walked in, their leather jackets dripping with rainwater, their presence commanding the entire room. They weren't just bikers, they were a brotherhood, a family known in the area for helping veterans, children, and the disabled. People called them the Iron Souls. The waitress looked nervous, as if expecting trouble, but these men were calm. They took a booth and ordered coffee. As they waited, one of them, a man with a gray beard and piercing eyes, noticed something strange on the floor near the corner table. A broken hair clip, small and pink, shaped like a butterfly. He picked it up and asked the waitress whose it was. Her voice trembled as she told them what had happened earlier: the disabled girl, the bullies, the slap, the silence. For a long moment, the diner fell into a hush. The gray-bearded man placed the clip on the table, staring at it as his jaw tightened. Then he looked up at his brothers and simply said, "Find them." While 2 of the bikers stayed behind, the others stepped back into the rain. The engines roared again, fatting into the storm. Inside, the gray-bearded man, whose name was Luke, asked the waitress for Emily's name. She didn't know much, but she mentioned that the girl often came by on weekends, always alone, always polite. Luke nodded slowly. He paid for their coffee and left $100 bill on the counter, saying, "For her next meal and for the silence that should have never happened." Outside, the bikers moved like shadows through the rain, scanning the nearby streets. They found the bullies 2 blocks away at a gas station, still laughing, still bragging. The confrontation that followed was not violent, but it was powerful. Luke and his men surrounded them, not with fists, but with words that hit harder than any punch. They spoke about respect, dignity, and how cowardly it is to prey on someone who can't fight back. The bullies' laughter died. One of them tried to speak, but Luke's steady stare silenced him. They walked away, pale, shaken, changed. The next morning, Emily returned to the diner. She hesitated at the door, half afraid, half hopeful. Inside, the waitress ran up to her, tears in her eyes, and handed her a small pink hair clip. "They came back," she whispered. "Those bikers. They told me to give this to you and to tell you that no one touches one of their angels." Emily froze, her hand trembling as she took the clip. She didn't even know them, yet someone had cared enough to stand up for her when no one else did. The thought broke her. She cried quietly, not from sadness, but from the sudden realization that she wasn't invisible anymore. Later that day, as she rolled down the quiet street, she heard the same deep rumble of motorcycles. The Iron Souls rode past her, slowing down for a moment. Luke lifted his hand in a small salute. Emily smiled for the first time in a long while and raised her hand back. No words were exchanged, but that moment spoke louder than any apology. Over the next few weeks, something in Emily changed. She started volunteering at a local rehab center, helping others who had lost mobility find strength and hope. Word of what had happened spread through the town, not the humiliation, but the redemption. The same diner that once held silence now held stories of kindness. The waitress hung a small sign by the door that read, "Respect is served here." Months later, the Iron Souls returned. They invited Emily to a charity ride, a fundraiser for wheelchair-accessible ramps around town. She hesitated, but they insisted. The next day, Emily rode in the front car, leading the bikers through the streets. The crowd cheered as they passed, and for the first time, Emily didn't feel disabled, she felt unstoppable. Her story became a ripple, touching strangers, changing perspectives, reminding people that kindness doesn't need wings, it just needs courage. The Bullies never showed their faces again, but rumor had it they started volunteering too, quietly trying to undo the shame of that night. Maybe they were changed by fear, or maybe, deep down, by the example they'd seen. As the sun set on that final ride, Emily sat outside the diner once more. The pink butterfly clip gleamed in her hair. She looked up at the horizon and whispered to herself, "Some people break you, others rebuild you. The choice of who you become, that's the miracle." If this story touched your heart, if you believe that kindness can still change the world, please like, share, and subscribe to Ripple of Kindness. Let the world know that compassion is stronger than cruelty. Sparkle's special request. Comment below with the words "Kindness wins" if you believe that even a small act of courage can rewrite someone's life story. Because sometimes, heroes don't wear capes, they wear leather jackets, ride through the rain, and remind the world that nobody deserves to be left behind.